Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here, Thistle Gypsy. So the other day, gosh, it's Sunday now, and it was actually Friday, so it took a while for me to be able to do this, to find the time and energy to do this, but on Friday, I just woke up and I was not feeling very well, and I thought, you know what, I need some allies here. I really need some allies. And so I definitely wanted to get out my goddess deck, which is Amy Marashinsky's, and no, I can't remember, Sophia. Well, we'll see because the book is in here. And I decided that, you know, I haven't been paying a lot of attention to my the cards that I pulled at the beginning of the year or the end of 2019 to represent the various months of the year. Oh, excuse me. It's morning, and after I'm done with this, I'll probably go to bed. And there are two cards amongst the cards that I was pulling for each month that would be appropriate for allies. So I'm going to start with those. And that is, I pulled a Shamans Oracle card and a Medicine card. But as I said, I really wanted to pull a card from, Amy Marashinsky. Okay. And I thought it was a Sophia with somebody separate. It's illustrated by Rana Janto. So I was wanting a goddess, and I decided fairies. I hadn't had anything to do with the fairies in much too long, and I hadn't done my spread that I do with the fairies, and I thought, well, this would be a good thing. I will do my fairies oracle spread. And just this morning, because I thought, you know what, just to balance the energies with the goddess, I wanted to get out my God's Tarot and pick one of those. So prepare for a ramble. I don't think I can go through all of this in short order. Maybe I'll be able to keep it to 30 minutes. I don't think I'm going to elaborate, and I don't know that these things are like automatically showing up in my life right now. And again, I'm seeing them as maybe helpers or guides, or again, allies that are going to help me, or this is the way it's turned out with the cards I've gotten, to calibrate my path. You know, maybe I've gotten a little off or a little wobbly, and so I think these things might I don't know, maybe keep me true to myself, some of them. So let's look at the cards. So most of the time with the Shaman's Oracle, if you get a negative sort of card, you know, the Shaman of Loss or something like that, it puts, you know, the shaman is kind of helping you through that, is a support or whatever. And what I got for this month was the Dancer of Frustration. And the Dancer of Frustration, it's hard to see this. You see those figures. They look rather tortured, and they look like they've got clubs. Is really not. I was, you know, the most positive thing it could say really is, one, dance it out, you know, do something physical to kind of dance it out. But to seek an alternative path. You know, if you're that frustrated, then maybe you need to look at doing things a different way. But let me look back at this. I'm going to have to get some glasses, different glasses. All right. It says, I am the dancer of frustration. I delight in placing obstacles in your path. And I was like, what? I don't need that. Did I get something like that out of the fairies also? Probably so. But I can also show you that there are other paths to walk. But it doesn't focus on that so much. It says, what will you do when I appear? Either you will push against me to try and break my hold, which I confess was often my reaction to obstacles, or you will walk with me until the strength of my grip gradually begins to lessen. In other words, I suppose it's trying to lead you in another direction. So while I may seem a negative force in your journey, I teach you to look for better ways to advance and how best to strengthen your resolve. Or maybe it should be in what direction to strengthen my resolve, that beating my head against a wall is maybe not the best thing. And I don't know, I don't know that I'm doing that in any areas of my life. Frustration, yes. Yes, I do have frustration. Certainly I have doggy frustration, especially Rufus these days. And some frustrations at work, but not critical. But the frustration at work does have to do with training and things that have been new ways. So being directed to do something or try something that ended up not working, and then there's frustration there. So an interesting, but again, it's like it's good feedback, but it doesn't quite feel like an ally because I don't. So how do I use that as an ally? Is maybe more the way I should think of it. I've been accused of that by my sister in terms of not, when these things come up like an animal guide or something showing up, like that thing I refer to as Lava Mama, that I don't engage in a conversation with them. So maybe that's what I need to do, is engage in a conversation. And I confess, when I think about that, it's just I don't feel like I have the patience for it. But we shall see. So with the medicine cards, I got Swan, and what a beautiful card that is to have for the month of May. Now, as I read this again, years after reading, I don't know when the last time is that I read this, but I've had this deck for many, many, many years, and for many years it was my only deck. But reading over this particular card again, it's very High Priestessy. Almost like an initiation into, that's pretty much what it is, an initiation into other worlds and other ways of seeing things that transform you. So, Aline, if you're watching this, it is, I think, essentially saying, that I do need to sit down and do that, shamanic exploration, energy exploration, that I really need to be doing that. And for those who don't know it, Aline suggested that maybe, because, I've, with my collaging, I got the collage calendar, and that has really, doing that and getting behind on that sometimes and then catching up, and then now I'm ahead on it, that it really helped me set a habit. And I was telling her that I'm having problems creating a sit down and journey, even though, it really doesn't take that much time, or a sit down and do energy work, and that sort of thing. And I'm just having, and I even wonder now that I'm thinking about it, it's like that's really some kind of self-care kind of things. And so, even though it's not what we normally growing up, certainly in my case growing up, that was not, that it just wasn't there, So it wouldn't have been considered self-care. So it's almost like not in my self-care toolbox. I would set it on a shelf somewhere as opposed to having it in a self-care toolbox, as something interesting and decorative. But so that just makes me question if there are other ways that I really am not engaging properly in self-care, and to think about that. But Aline had suggested to me, when I told her that I was having a difficulty even sitting down and doing it, let alone creating a habit around it, that I somehow engage with that, actually physically connecting with something. And she was suggesting maybe my animals. So that's got me thinking about that. Another thing, now that I'm talking about it, one of the magic things about expression, right? Now that I'm talking about it, I'm thinking of my stones, because I have really enjoyed, like, particularly my celestite, holding it while I'm doing it. So maybe if I set out a series of stones as reminders, and each, like for every day of the week, or I've got enough stones that I could probably do every day of the month. It's time to sit with that stone. And because I think my animals could be pretty disruptive, I could try it maybe with my cats and see if they will settle down with me, because my cats could certainly be very meditative. But otherwise, I think it could be problematic. In other words, that it would be disrupted, and my animals would really want it to be all about them. And so I couldn't get into the meditative state. But anyway, so thanks, Aline. So, and this is what I'm saying in terms of rambles. So, who knows where these suggestions will go? But so I feel like this was almost not so much an ally as instructive. And there are other ones here too that are like, we don't think you need an ally, Jennifer. We think you need to do X, Y, and Z. It's almost more reprimand sorts of energies. And that's why I say, they're maybe helping me correct course or calibrate my daily life a little differently. And this is certainly one of them. All right, so I've rambled on that long enough. So let's do the next one. So this was really curious. So I was hoping, of course, for either, I don't know, a gentler goddess, or maybe a defending goddess. I did get a kick-ass goddess, but she's telling me, it's a mob, she's telling me to pretty much suck it up, you know, because, her keyword here is responsibility, and she is certainly about strength and determination. She could be representing somebody in my life who is an ally. She could be. But she's not going to be putting that sword down, and she's not going to be using it to defend me. She's saying, follow my lead, is what she's saying. Follow my lead. Maintain your independence and your sense of self-worth, and where did she go? I'm just going to see if there's anything else. Here's, she could outrun horses, confer with birds, and bring men into the heat of desire with a mere look. So she's just extremely powerful, and liked to puff out her female chest and challenge the power of others and be just really, really bold. And here it says, Mav strikes boldly into your life to challenge you with the task of taking responsibility for your life. So yeah, suck it up. It says it is time for you to become queen of your domain, and certainly I am queen of my domain. So again, I just think that's kind of, is saying no matter how bad you feel or whatever, to claim. There's a lot of claiming here, that she tends to be on the jealous side. And is about ownership also. So it's not just taking responsibility, but she seemed to have a craving to own things and to express her power. So very interesting. And I could see this kind of going along with the dancer of frustration, because the ritual suggestion here in the book is the owning dance. And in that dance, you write down like all of the things you own that are part of your life, even if you don't like them. And then your attitude toward them. And then you're supposed to create a circle, and you stay on the outside of the circle and you dance around, and you read each note and you throw it into the center of the circle. And then in the end, I think you step into the circle and pick them all up and declare that they are all yours. So very interesting. But again, yeah, she's certainly a kick-ass goddess. But it isn't a protective hug. It's a stand up and own it, lady. It's your life. It's like, all right. Okie dokie. Do I still have my fairy cards? Because of course you have to see the fairies. I pulled them last night. And then wrote it down on a card here and took the book to bed and just read about it without the cards. So what I do with, let me do, you know what, now that I've primed you to see fairies, I'm going to switch gears here because this is going to take a little time with the fairies. Maybe not as much. Maybe I won't get so rambly. So I did decide to pull up my God Tarot and pull some God cards. And I can see now again, you know, when you have what came out here, I ended up with 2 cards. It could be that one thing about Mauve is that she just had incredible vitality and that warrior spirit and all of that. And so she does have a great deal of strength. So she could be an ally in that regard in terms of calling on her to imbue me with some of that strength and determination, some of that warrior spirit when I'm flagging. And that comes to mind because this person, which this is the 10 of Wands in this deck, but this person, this is a practice of torture essentially in colonial Americas called pressing, where they slowly crush you to death, in this case to get a confession of witchcraft out of him. And this card is also about ownership. So, so that's interesting. I don't pull this deck out very often, and I wouldn't even say that I need to pull it out more often. I wouldn't say that. But it's really a good deck. At some point, I want to do an Ugly Decks interview. Not interview, video. Because the art is not great. The art is not great. I wouldn't call it ugly, but it's not great. And I would call this one of my ugly decks. And I have another ugly deck, at least one. And yet they're very valuable. Well, and there was always the Conver, which I have now since I've decided not to do pips. That I'm giving that away, but that was certainly an ugly deck, and you know, in the end I let it go. But I've let go of, because so many decks are beautiful, but I've let go of more beautiful decks, I feel like, than decks that are ugly. I don't think there's any deck that I let go of just because it was ugly. So someday I might do an ugly decks video. I'll have to see how many I have. All right, so we have Lancelot. I got 2 because as I was shuffling, Lancelot wanted to slip out of there. And both of these cards are about sticking to your beliefs, or in this case, pursuing the Holy Grail, or, you know, sticking to his love. Both of them have to do with self-sacrifice. But this much more so than this. And persistence in pursuing a goal. So I don't know if I want to go. This guidebook is well researched, and this is a really interesting situation. And so this is like standing up for your beliefs and standing up for reason in an unreasonable situation. Because I guess in Salem, if you admitted to witchcraft, you were probably, you would be jailed, and I don't know what else would happen to you. I'm sure it wasn't that simple, but that's part of the things that was in here. If you didn't, then you were hanged. Oh, so it's just ridiculous. If you didn't confess to witchcraft, then you were hanged, and your property was confiscated. And so what he's doing here is he will not lie by saying that he was practicing witchcraft. So he's sticking to his beliefs, that lying is a sin. So he won't do that. And he won't deny it, because then he will be killed. and the land that is supposed to go to his sons will be confiscated, and so they will no longer have anything. So he's also protecting the interests of his family. So he just remains mute and will not declare anything, and he dies from having weight put on his chest, I assume, until he can no longer breathe. So I hope I'm not faced with that kind of choice, but it does certainly speak to the sacrifice to keep your land, your ownership, like Mav, keeping things in the family. So really, I just find that these two cards are really quite powerful together, in terms of what you sacrifice for. So this card was trying to sneak out, and so I took it. And then this card was top of the deck when I was finished shuffling. So yeah, I'm not going to go further into that, but it's really, really interesting cards. Really a worthwhile pull. So on to fairies. So my fairy spread is based on, it's 5 cards, and it's based on the way the book, Brian Froud's The Fairies Oracle, and Jessica Macbeth is the writer. The way they categorize the fairies, you could call it the suits, but the way they categorized maybe the families of fairies within the book. And so the first one to me would be the essence of the situation is in the middle. So the essence of the situation, I got honesty and friends. They popped out together shortly after I started to shuffle. And I think this is pretty obvious. Is the essence of a situation is needing to be honest, to treat people as friends, to be tactful, but to also, like Mav would never do, would never shrink back from being 100% of who you are. And even the, is it Edward Corey? What's his name? Giles Corey. Sticking with honesty. And your friends will be your friends as a result. So the reason I was doing this was to get to what would be in this position, which is the fairy guide. But I thought, while I'm picking a fairy guide, what the heck, I'll just do my whole spread, because it can't hurt. So up here, the card I usually put at the top is the fairy ruler. So that would be, and I'm not picking these I'm picking them from the whole deck. So I'm not just picking them from their family, I'm picking them from the whole deck. So sometimes you could be ruled by something that in the book is a fairy challenger. And in this case, I think I chose a helper. Yeah. So my ruler right now is Ilby the Retriever. And he's one of my favorite cards. I love Ilby. And he helps you rediscover, or he keeps safe for you forgotten dreams, the things that you've lost, and he helps to choose the time to so he's part of divine guidance here, or divine timing, to nudge you when it's time to reclaim and re-find with his help those lost dreams. So yeah, I'm happy to be ruled by Ilby, and would definitely consider him an ally or helper, a lovely ally or helper, and honesty also, and friends always. And so the next one that I would do would be there's my fairy guide, Nellis the Alchemist. Which is kind of like the swan energy in that she is about transformation, and is similar to Ilby in that although maybe quicker, but is also almost about clearing the way. It says in there she's almost like an Eight of Wands kind of character, in that things, if you follow her lead, things will start to happen very fast. And if you don't follow her lead, she will bonk you with her wand. A thought comes to mind, a question comes to mind, which I'll have to journal about at some point, or maybe I'll pull out some other cards and ask, is how is she expressing herself in my life right now? So what things do I not want to hit head on, like a bull in the frustration card, but to look and see where maybe Nellis is saying, you idiot, look a little to the left or maybe to the right, and here I am, and I have the clear path for you. Get over here. So yeah, I can see that there's an expression with some of these cards and the dancer frustration that I'm missing something, that I probably have everything I need in my environment, but I'm failing to perceive something that's there. And then we have the maiden as my helper. So this lower position is who I have for a helper. And I just don't, it must be my animals, because as I was reading, and it could be inner child, but I don't think it is. It could be, there is a foolish aspect to this card, in the sense that a toddler toddles, in that unsteady way toward whatever intrigues them. But is also, I think it's saying, I don't need to stomp on that tendency, but just like a baby, a toddler, a young child, they still need that guiding hand. But as I was reading the description, all I could think of was puppies. It sounded like a puppy. I don't have any puppies, and I don't want any puppies. So I am like in too deep with the dogs I currently have. But I think there's also too a fresh aspect and a playful aspect to this that I think might be telling me that, because one of the things we love about dogs is that they retain that through most of their lives, right? And so I need to maybe start interacting with my dogs more, playing with my dogs more, and that would be a good helper. I mean, there may also be a young person that might be a helper that I'm missing. So, interesting card. And then for the challenger position, this is the challenger position. So, what is challenging me right now? I got kind of the challenger of all challengers, which is the soul shrinker. And the soul shrinker, again, I reread it. It's about self-acceptance. So the idea is that that the soul shrinker got so ugly, nasty looking because of all of the nasty thoughts that people have about themselves and about other people, and self-criticism, negative gossip. So it's all the negative crap that's flying around, negative energy that's flying around. So in the story of the soul shrinker, it says that the soul shrinker used to be beautiful, but all of the negativity, whether towards others, toward ourselves, in the general environment, and that is the soul shrinker's general environment. So the idea is that this fairy is a barometer, so to speak, of how much negativity is in the soul shrinker's environment. So, the question comes back to the querent. Are you helping the soul shrinker return to beauty by creating positive thoughts, positive expectations, not gossiping, not, all of that kind of thing? Or are you making the soul shrinker uglier or maintaining its ugliness by engaging in negative thoughts and energies? So, and this could mean that since this is in the challenger position, that I may be absorbing too much negativity, much as I try to avoid it, as well as engaging in negativity myself. And so, kind of all the more reason to engage in the swan energy, this and Ilby and the swan, to and maybe clear my frustrations, in order to lift that energy, to clear it and lift it. We don't want the soul shrinker to get any uglier. And I do think it's calling me out to some extent on kind of like with Mauve, the responsibility there, being responsible for my own moods and attempting to adjust them, do what I need to adjust them. And just making sure this doesn't become me. I guess that's all there is there. Where I absorb ugliness and become that ugly being. So this was my exploration into allies and just getting some perspective. And again, it was because I was just not feeling well, really not feeling well physically. And I've had this just on, I've got malaise. And it's, oh, I don't know what it is. I think that's part of my dancer of frustration. And I will give myself some credit with the health problems in this, particularly this past week. I have done some alternatives. I have tried some different things to get past it. But probably not as complete as Mauve would have me do, or as maybe the Soul Shrinker or Nellis would have me do. So we'll see if I'm honest with myself. I think it was worthwhile doing this, and partly worthwhile because I just have some great decks. I should be using them more, I think. I think I should do this kind of, just for myself, this spread maybe weekly, at least monthly. So maybe I need to set myself up a bit of a schedule here for these kinds of decks. That I go to for this kind of guidance. We'll see. I'll think about it. A little structure wouldn't hurt, because I do really love and appreciate some of these decks that I haven't been using very much. All right, everybody. Take care. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.